Hey there, it's Chris. Welcome back to the Spartan Ultra Training Program, where throughout my time doing my racing career here, I tend to spend a lot of my time in the age group competitive kind of categories when I do these runs. So generally speaking, when we're going over the obstacles, going over the trails, there aren't that many people around. We might get something with like 2 or 3 people maybe in front of the monkey bars or like walls and stuff like that. But in general, there are 3 specific obstacles that always seem to garner a pack of people in front, either because of difficulty or there's a technique that people don't seem to understand how to use to go through. So this time we're going to tackle these 3. So the first is going to be the Stairway to Sparta, which frankly is going to be slightly above the scale of what I can do during this video. I'm not about to go and build one of those out here. The second is the Irish table here, which if you remember, if you've been racing long enough, they used to have the obstacle card, the vertical cargo 2.0. This has been the reincarnation of that obstacle. It's the exact same techniques going over, it's just a much safer package in case you don't. And the third is everybody's favorite, the spear throw. So just to stand there. So just to kind of get started on this, when it comes to the Stairway to Sparta, again, I can't do it, but that one, unfortunately, that really is kind of a grip and pull-up strength. You jump up there and you're going to pull up, basically just using your arms, go up those climbing handholds to get to the top. The one thing I will say you absolutely don't want to do, which I did again my first time on this, was I got my hands on there, and your modus operandi is usually when you get your feet on something, you're golden. All of a sudden it takes a lot of pressure off the arms. So if you get your hands on the lower ones and then kind of swing your feet up to get onto, say, an adjacent foothold on the side, what can happen is you can lose your grip with your hands and you're going to wind up falling on your back and your neck, and you can have a whole lot of problems on that. So resist the temptation to grab up and swing your legs around to get on that. You really do just kind of have to beast your arms up there and use just arm strength to get to the top. Sorry to say it, it's, to my knowledge, that's what that is, do it safely, because otherwise, yeah, a failure condition on that can be kind of catastrophically bad. That said, if anybody's been racing long enough that they remember the vertical cargo 2.0, this was an obstacle. So what would happen is you'd always have somebody would run up, they'd jump real high, they'd get their center of gravity over the platform, because it used to be a platform that just came out. They would get up, they'd flop up, and they would be great. So then the next person behind them would see them do this and say, oh, that's how you solve this obstacle. So they would run, they would jump up, but they wouldn't get their center of gravity over. And what would happen is they'd fling, they'd come back, their underbody, their lower body would then swing underneath, but because it was a platform, there was nothing to grab onto, and your failure condition was you would fall flat on your back, you'd fall on your pouch back here, your hydration vest, it would cause a lot of problems and a lot of injuries to a lot of people. So eventually Spartan figured this out, and they replaced the vertical cargo 2.0 and they remade it as kind of a more standard Irish table. Now we're going to solve this the exact same way. The only difference is if you run up through this and you fail, this gives you something to grab onto. Because it gives you something to grab onto, you can swing down, and it allows you to swing back and fail on your feet. So the failure condition is much, much safer on this. However, how do we get over this thing? I mean, there's nothing to brace your feet up against. You can't do it. If you try to go up this way, your center of gravity winds up underneath it. So how do you actually get through? And actually, we're going to use the same tricks I'd mentioned in the overhead obstacles, and we're going to use like gravity and momentum. Actually, really, it's going to momentum. Forget gravity. We're going to use momentum to get us over this obstacle with as little energy as possible. And we're going to do it without doing a running start. It's going to be much safer doing this just standing here and going. So let me verbally take you through first, and I'll do a demonstration after. So what we're going to be looking for is we're going to stand straight up, and we're going to put our arms on top. Now I have this thing set at 6 feet right now, so I can barely get my arms over this. So I think the women's height is anywhere from like 5 foot to 5'6". The men's height is like 5'6" to 6 feet. It's somewhere in there. So this is kind of on the upper end of what I've seen it done. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our hands up on top, then we're going to swing our legs as far as we can under, and then as they swing back, it's going to generate momentum for us, and then which we're going to use to then kind of get our elbows on top. Once you get the elbows on top, our center of gravity is kind of up here, and we can then just lift the legs up and over. And it really is just kind of that easy. It does take still a little bit of strength, but if we use momentum, it takes a lot less strength than it otherwise would. So in practice, what this is going to look like is I'm up, so now I'm swinging forward. I'm not the most graceful going over, but that's all it is. And then if you watch the by the numbers video, and you're doing like say this is for an ultra condition, you'd have another 10 minutes worth of recovery statistically between this and the next obstacle. And that took what, 10 seconds to do? So it can be done really, really quick. And it's actually not that hard to get that one in once you have the proper technique. That said, as for the spear, I have a little bit of leg work I got to do real quick. I gotta give myself a target. Because what fun, I'm not gonna cut this video out. What fun would this be if I cut the video and came in? This wouldn't be any fun if we did this with a cut video, so we gotta do this live. We're also gotta redo this entire thing again. I'm gonna tell you right now this is the first take, and we're gonna do this on a first take. So, whoop. Let's come down here. We can see our target down there. And first thing we're gonna wanna do when we get our spear, again, I'm just using broom handles right now. I'm not worried about the weight. This is actually gonna weigh a lot less than the spear we're gonna be using, and this is something you probably have access to. You can just use a broom handle, take the end off, bam, you're there. The idea is to be able to throw it straight, and then depending how heavy or light the spear actually feels on the course, you can then adjust your angle. If the spear on the course is heavier than this, you can aim a little more up. If it feels lighter than what we're doing, which it never will, you can always go a little bit lower. But the idea right now for practice purpose is we just want to go straight. So first thing we're always going to do is this has the wire that comes out the back. Unravel the wire, throw it over the fence. Or even before that, in terms of selecting which spear to use on the course, because they have like 20 targets, my modus operandi is find one that is already embedded in the target. That means somebody has made it, you know the point is good, it's not bent, it's going into something, it's already succeeded, so you know it can succeed. So I tend to make a beeline for those types first, and then you go, pull it back towards you, throw the wire over the fence. Now I don't do a big wind up, I basically just have a step and throw. That said, how to hold it, there are 3 ways you can hold this. You can have center of gravity in the back, you can hold it so it's neutral in the middle, or you can have the weight in the front. So the one way you absolutely do not want to do is you don't want the weight in the back. If you have the weight in the back and you throw it, what's going to happen is the back end is going to sink and it's going to go through the air kind of like this. So as an idea on how this isn't going to work particularly well, the weight is in the wrong place. Thankfully, I have a second one here. So instead, one way you could go is you go right in the middle. I tend to have the weight a little bit towards the front, and everyone I think is going to have a slightly different throwing technique. Mine, rather than throw it like a javelin where you're kind of launching from your hips and your shoulder area, I tend to have I've had shoulder issues in the past where my shoulder blade impinges on everything back here, so I tend to be really tight. So I tend to have a more compact throwing style, and I will put the weight slightly in the front, and I just kind of have more of a shot put where the weight kind of goes straight through and in. So let's see how this works on camera, and bam. That's all we need. First try, baby. So that's all I'm really gonna have for those types of things. Again, you will see a lot of people on these types of things. They may be watching for they may not know the techniques. If you don't know a technique to do any of these others, these are 2 of the main ones that I've always seen people struggle with. If you don't know a technique, you can always ask the person who's working there, or you can wait and watch somebody else or a couple other people go before you on these obstacles, and you can always see how they do it, see what they do that kind of makes things work, and yeah, go with that. Most of the time, the people are kind of knowledgeable on the obstacles, the ones who are working there. Sometimes they're not. Kind of depends on what kind of day it is. But yeah, always ask people on the course how that works, and like I said, whenever you can, use momentum to get yourself through the stuff. Irish table, straight up momentum to get through, and spear throw. Just give yourself maybe just like an hour, like a half hour or something, 15 minutes. Find a broom handle, find a space you can do it, and just kind of practice on just getting, again, height's not as important as just being able to go straight. As long as you can go straight, you can always adjust the height when you get to the course and you feel how heavy the spear is. And that's all I really have on this segment here. You can do this. You can make it over these things. It's possible. So that's all I got. And yeah, until next time, enjoy.